Welcome to All Things Greater Burlington, where you will hear from the movers, shakers, and changemakers that are moving Greater Burlington forward. Here is your host, Stephen Brody.
Welcome to All Things Greater Burlington. What is adult day service, and what is the difference between adult day service and assisted living or a nursing home, for example? Well, fortunately, we have the answers for you today. Our guest is Denise Hanks, president and founder of Heartsong, who is making a presence here in the Greater Burlington area, and we are happy to have her here to share her heart and her vision for Heartsong here in the area. Denise, thank you for being with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited about this.
Tell us about Heartsong. What is it, and what do you hope to bring to the Greater Burlington area?
So Heartsong is a 501c3 nonprofit, and we were created to bring an adult day center to the area. So we will serve people who are no longer able to stay home alone. And we have purchased the old former Burlington Care Center in Crapo Park. So we're going to be doing a ton of renovations to that to bring the adult day center to our area.
Now, are you from here, Denise, or are you a transplant like so many other folks?
No, I was born and raised here in Burlington and West Burlington. And I went away to college for a while, we lived in Wichita, Kansas for a few years, and then Des Moines, and then found our way back home.
And what is your connection to this topic? What is it that gives you a passion about this? Do you have a background in this?
Yes, so I am a speech language pathologist. I have worked at the hospital for 27 years now, and I worked primarily inpatient rehab and acute care. And at that time, I became very aware that there was a gap missing when people were trying to be discharged home.
Okay.
So I've done home health, and I've worked in long-term care, but sometimes people just wanted to have help during the day, and then their loved one could stay at home. And what I found happening is people would take them home, and then the caregivers were getting ill because they weren't caring for themselves. And they just didn't realize sometimes what a burden that can be. Then about 10 years ago, it became very personal for me as my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's dementia. And a few years ago, there just became more of a sense of urgency to bring this to our community.
Right. So there isn't anything like this in the area, is what you're saying.
There isn't. The closest one is Washington, Iowa. Mm-hmm. It's a small one. You know, in the bigger cities, they have them. Yeah. And in like Arizona and Florida, my parents were living in Florida for a while, so they have quite a few adult day centers. Yeah. But here in Burlington, no, it's been a void for many, many years.
And can you distinguish again between what you're doing, an adult day care center, and like a senior center? Because I know people might think of a senior center and they might think that that's what you're talking about, but possibly not.
No, we're much more. We have much more opportunities and services available. So although Iowa doesn't differentiate between an adult, what do they call it, a social program for adult day and a health program, because most of our board members are health care oriented, we decided that we would go with the healthcare model. Yes. And so we will be staffed by CNAs and a nurse, and just provide that extra care, knowing that people will have trained professionals working with them.
And is this then something where the loved one would come for the day for a certain amount of hours and then go back home to where they're living?
That's correct. Okay. So we would be open tentatively, we're looking at like 7:30 to 5:30, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. So there would not be any coverage for evenings or weekends or holidays, major holidays, and even those extra little holidays like the day after Thanksgiving and things like that. But otherwise, we would be open full-time. That doesn't mean you have to come full-time. We would require that people would come at least 3 half days a week. And the reason that we have come up with that timeline is if you have someone with dementia or something like that, they don't do well with new environments.
Yeah.
So if they're there, and those 3 half days could be like 1 full day and 1 half day, or it can be 3 different half days.
Yeah.
And so that offers them the opportunity to become acclimated with the staff, get to know people, and just make them feel very comfortable there.
And talk again, Denise, about the services. So when they come and they are left, dropped off, whatever is the appropriate term, then what then happens? What services are then offered or provided?
So a day at a day center looks something like this. So the first day, when they're just getting to know the program, like their loved one could stay with them all day or half day and that would help us know that person better. And it would just also build a sense of security both for the participant and for the caregiver.
Yeah.
And when they first come, we'd probably have a little continental breakfast, something light, cereal, toast, things like that, just very simple.
Yeah.
And then we'll have some activities. All of our programming will be individually based. So we will do an intake assessment, see what those persons' likes, dislikes are, their skills that they still have intact or they're able to do. And then the things they like to do. For instance, if they like gardening, then we're going to have courtyard with raised garden beds so they can work with the plants, and that will be secured. Plus, we have cameras already set up in those places. So either cameras, staff, they will be watched completely. But maybe they like flower arrangements, so they can pick some of the flowers and put them in the vases at the center. Just anything that will pique their interest and keep them engaged and active during the day. So we'll have some planned group activities, sure.
I was going to ask that, sure.
Yeah, and then we'll have some, and that might be cards or bingo or just a variety of other things.
Yes.
And then also we'll just have individual stations set up. So I've been studying a lot about Montessori, and I don't know if you know that kind of program was built for children.
Yes.
But they also have Montessori programs for dementia care. So we'll be incorporating that concept not only in our design of the space, but also in the individualized programming we'll do.
So you'll have group activities, you'll have one-on-one activities. With that, you're obviously going to need enough staff.
Correct.
To do that. Have you talked about, because you do have a board, you have a board of directors, have you talked about capacity issues? Like what's the most number of loved ones that you can have at a given time there?
Sure. So the state does have quite a few regulations about space and staffing.
Yeah.
Initially, we're going to start with probably 12 to 18 people. That will help us really understand what we're doing and kind of like a soft opening that a restaurant might have. We're going to do that with the Adult Day Center. The staff ratio is 6-to-1, so 6 participants to 1 staff person.
Okay.
But that doesn't include volunteers. So I've had a lot of people that have asked, hey, I can do this. I like to crochet, or I like to do tie blankets and things like that. Can I help? And of course you can.
Yeah.
We encourage that. And that is one of the other things as we do our individualized program, we also want to give our participants an opportunity to give back to the community.
Yeah.
So maybe that means making Tide blankets for, maybe to go along with the Build-A-Bed program.
Yeah.
Or I've done missionary work. Maybe even that goes overseas to people. Whatever is needed. We're going to talk with like Salvation Army and places like that. Also, maybe we make dog biscuits someday for the Humane Society. Just
Right.
whatever. People want to have a purpose. You want to live with a purpose till the very end is what I have noted. And we want to provide opportunities for them to be able to do that.
How active does the individual need to be in order to qualify for Heart Song?
Right. So most of our people, just looking at the caseload of other adult day centers, probably 80% of our people will be dementia. So usually they're really quite active physically. We will, at this point, we're saying that we will not take people who cannot be transferred from a wheelchair to a chair with more than one person. And the reason for that is it just then we don't have to get into lifts. Plus, if people need more help than that, it's probably very difficult to get them out of their home.
Yes.
So those really are the only physical requirements they have. So if they have a stroke and they need to be in a wheelchair, that's fine, or a head trauma or whatever, you know.
You talked about volunteers, which is obviously very noble, but you will need some skilled folks there as well. What type of education? What type of requirements are you looking for? Are you looking for nurses, LPNs, LCSWs? What are you looking for that would be a good fit for this?
Right. So primarily we will be looking for CNAs, certified nursing assistants, and they can get that training right here at SEC. And they'll be the ones doing most of the work. And then we will have a nurse on staff, probably an LPN or a couple LPNs, and then an RN just to cover the documentation of the LPN. So just maybe half day a week.
Okay.
That's what I see happening now, but it depends on what our application base is.
I know it's not an overnight facility. Will there be any beds there for folks if they wanted to rest or nap?
Right. So you really don't want them to sleep in a bed during the day because that builds a certain sleep cicada that is not healthy for them.
Okay.
So sure, we could have beds there and they could sleep all day and that'd be easy for us, but we're also, taking care of the participant is only one part of our mission. The other part is to care for the caregivers. So we want to be able to send them home so that they're not going to be up all night for the caregivers. We will have an isolation room. So just like even with children, if somebody gets sick during the day, we need to take them away from the others until their loved one can come pick them up.
There's a lot of tactile work probably that you want to be doing with dementia patients as well, just to keep their mind moving and active, I would imagine.
Yes. So there are several programs that we could even, as time goes on, we'll probably set something up so they would just sit down at a computer and it bring up pictures of their families and have labels of their families in there, and they can just scroll through that. Yeah. We're going to have a quiet room or space that, if not necessarily to nap, but if they fall asleep in a recliner, that's fine. But we'll have things like, I looked at lava lamps, but now they have this really cool thing called jellyfish lamps. I'm like, I need one of those.
I never heard of one.
Yeah, well, they're fake jellyfish that kind of swim up and down. I'm like, oh, that would be fun. So just with a little decreased lighting, maybe some soft music, just to help ground them to come back to the group or fall asleep for a little bit, whatever.
Denise, where do you go to find information like this in terms of other communities that are doing things similar? Is there some sort of a network out there that you have tapped into where you can commiserate and you can share with? Yes.
So the adult day center community is most of us are nonprofits, and we're very open to having networking together. So there is a national organization called NADSA, and it's the National Adult Day Services Association.
Good job.
And that you can look up there, and they will list out where the adult day centers are. I have toured the one in Washington, Iowa. I've also been to, it's called KSI up in Davenport, and we are modeling our program similar to what KSI has. So, and what I mean by that, once we get the adult day center up and running, then we also want to have a community center for older adults, provide education opportunities. We're looking for Milestones Area Agency on Aging, moving their office space out there eventually after we get that remodeled, and really have a food pantry specific for seniors. So I've talked to the people at Salvation Army and St. Vincent's de Paul and asked, is this something, as well as the Milestones people, is this something needed in our community? And they all overwhelmingly said, absolutely. It's harder for older people to get to these other places. And there's a little bit of a pride issue, things like that. So we will eventually have that food pantry. We're hoping to have a therapy clinic or other services. And also what the community has requested and we're looking at doing is at one end of that, having a little like patio garden cafe type place so that they can have coffee and smoothies, simple paninis, something like that. So because our north side of the building really overlooks the tennis courts.
Okay.
So it's a big draw there. So we've got the tennis courts, we've got the pool, we have the dog park, and we have people, there's a lot of people that walk through that park all the time. So
because you're a nonprofit, when this opens, and again, at the time we're recording this, you are not open yet.
No.
How will you be sustained in order to keep the doors open?
Great question. So it will not be a free service. We will charge. Medicaid will help cover the cost for that. VA benefits will help cover the cost of that. Some long-term care insurance policies will cover that. And then private pay. But we do want to keep it reasonable rate. So we're also looking, Milestones will rent from us. So that rental income will help us out as well.
Yes. So let's talk about getting your doors open. So you've certainly made a splash, letting people know who you are, that you're in the community, your hopes, your aspirations. You've got a board that's meeting. You've joined the Greater Burlington Partnership. You're doing everything that you should be doing to get things open. So what's happening right now to get from where we are to opening up the doors to the facility at the property that you've purchased?
Right. So we are right now starting our capital campaign because money makes things happen. And we are recruiting volunteers to help with that. And we're going to go out and reach out to people in the community. We also are working with grant writers to see what's available out there for community grants and for grants for adult day services. The community has been very, very supportive, and we already have some we have over $300,000 pledged for the next 5 years, and we need to increase that. But we are well on our way. We are just plugging away. We were able to purchase, the money for the building was donated by a family, and so we were thankful for that. And then the previous owner, to make up for the gap, so a family donated a substantial sum, but we still had a little bit that we needed to come up with. And the previous owner of Burlington Care Center really buys into the vision that we're doing.
Yeah.
And so she and her board agreed to a 1% loan for us for the remainder. So
Isn't that sweet?
I know, and take second fiddle on the mortgage so that we can borrow money for the construction costs.
And what a great location too. I mean, you're between, what does it say? Between the historic and beautiful city properties of Crapo Park and Dancourt Park in Burlington, Iowa. So yeah, what a great spot.
Unbelievable. And we kissed a lot of frogs before we got the prince, I'm going to say. We went through many, many buildings here. We started with just a building that was 3,500 square feet, just tiny, really, just to get the adult day center open. But before we even opened our doors, we're like, well, wait a minute. There's so much more opportunity here to meet the needs of the community.
Yeah.
So we actually have a 28,000 square foot building, and none of the other buildings had green space. And I was like, oh, we really want green space. I really had a vision of having a garden and a place where people could sit and just enjoy nature. And we have that. It's just absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
Will everything take place there on site, or do you foresee any opportunities if you were to get a vehicle per se to take people like maybe on day trips or going somewhere in town to go to some function, some activity?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We hope to do that eventually. Mm-hmm. Yes. And the city's been real good. We won't provide transportation, but it's not official, but the city's like, we will put you on as a stop. Like, that's a no-brainer.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So we will have that. People can come that way. And yes, I look for us to sponsor trips and things like that. Mm-hmm. Eventually.
Yeah.
Also in the surrounding communities, and I'm talking like 5 or 10 years down the road, have little satellite places too in the smaller communities, so they don't have to travel as far. And we've done the hard work. We've got the nonprofit. We've got the board. That's very difficult to do for a small organization. So.
Yes.
We'll be able to help out.
Well, let's just put it out there, get to the nitty gritty. So the capital campaign, your goal is to raise how much money?
To get started, we need at least a couple million.
Okay.
And probably more. At this point, we just have to remember that the whole building needs a new roof. That's 28,000 square feet of roof.
Yeah.
So if you've replaced your roof, that's expensive. Plus windows. The windows need to be replaced. Mm-hmm. And we really are going to improve the exterior so it looks not so much like a nursing home. So we're going to do some upgrades to the outside of the building, not paint the brick or anything like that, but just spruce it up. Also, the parking lot's in rather bad shape, so we're going to resurface that parking lot too.
God be willing, what is your desired opening date?
I would love to be open January 1st-ish.
2024.
2024.
And looking at your prospectus package that you have here, there are various levels of giving. The lowest level is up to $999. That's a friends level. And then it just goes up from there in terms of, how generous you want to be. So it looks like you've really tried your best to make things spread out for as many people as possible to want to contribute.
Absolutely. And every little bit helps just to get us going and things like that. That doesn't include some of the donations of items that we've had, like a printer and a computer, things like that as well. But we really want this to be a community project. Now, if somebody comes in and says, I'm going to write you a check for $5 million, I will take it.
You will, will you?
But
well, that's good to know. I'm glad you cleared that up.
Yeah. So but I do want this to. I want people in Burlington to drive by and come be a part of this and say, I was a part of this. I helped get this started. And that's important to me.
I think that's wonderful. In addition to the donor recognition levels, I mean, if there is somebody listening who does have the means, like you're talking about, there's commemorative opportunities as well with regards to establishment of a wing, the community room, the fireside lounge, a specialty room, courtyards. There's a Giving Tree donor wall that'll be there. Some specialty items. So definitely your board has put a lot of time and effort in coming up with this and researching and knowing, what is necessary and how to go about doing it.
Right.
And you've been going at this for some time. I see that the first board meeting was in July of 2019. So this isn't something that's happening overnight. This is definitely a labor of love that's taking some time.
Right. I wrote my first email almost 6 years ago because I thought, we need to have this. I need to find somebody that's going to do this. Yeah. And at that time, I didn't know it was going to be me, but it is. And I went as far as I could as an individual. And then I got our board. I got the board involved, got our 501c3, all of that. Now, our board has gone as far as we can, and this is why we're reaching out to the community.
Right. And I have to ask, because you have it in the timeline as well. You had your first board meeting in July of 2019, and then boom, March 2020, COVID.
Yeah.
How did that affect the timeline and what you were wanting to do?
That was a major blow to us. We were very, very thankful that we weren't open yet because it's been devastating to other day centers in the area and throughout the nation. But we actually were working with another nonprofit, and they were going to redo a building, and we were going to have a part of that building. Then when COVID hit, their major donor backed out. And so we were just left, and it just, we were scrambling around, getting pieces together to keep going forward. But, nobody knew what was going to happen. We were all just like sucker punched and like, what do we do, and at that time we didn't have a building or any urgency to expenditures or anything like that. So we're just like, let's ride the wave and see what happens. But we continued to meet. We met via Zoom monthly. And then when we could, we met in person with social distancing and those things to really plan for the future. So it gave us an opportunity to really step back and see. And that's probably where we grew from a 3,500 square foot building to needing much more space because we got brainstorming about what if we could do this for the community and provide this. So, yeah.
Well, let's wrap things up right now. So this all sounds wonderful. So if someone is feeling moved to come beside you and want to be a part of this effort, Denise, where do they go and what do they do?
So right now they can send us a check currently to the West Burlington P.O. Box. So it's P.O. Box number 39, and that's in West Burlington, Iowa, 52655. We are in the process of setting up an online donor program, but I didn't realize how complicated that is.
Yeah.
I just thought, we'll just set something up and it'll go into the bank. And no, it doesn't work like that. You have to have it, because we are a 501c3, we'll have to be able to recognize those donors, get out the receipts and all of that. So we need a program that works with QuickBooks or our current program. So I'm in the process of researching that right now, and we are in the process. We should have a website launched within the month, and that will come alongside at that same time.
But in the meantime, you do have a Facebook page
We do.
That's set up, and the name to search for is what on Facebook?
Heart Song Day Services.
Okay, Heart Song Day Services.
Correct.
Well, Denise, we are out of time. This time just flew by, so I want to thank you for your time and coming in and sharing the Heart Song vision and the story. And we wish you the best, and we hope that the money just flows in so you can turn this into a reality and do whatever needs to be done for that building and start servicing the good folks in Greater Burlington.
Thank you very much. Yes, we're looking forward to it.
Well, we appreciate you listening with us today. Don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. And please give us a call at the Greater Burlington Partnership if you have ideas on future guests. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time on All Things Greater Burlington.
Have been listening to All Things Greater Burlington with Stephen Brody. Be sure to hit the subscribe button to catch all new episodes. To learn more about All Things Greater Burlington, visit greaterburlington.com/ATGB.